Mind uploading sounds like science fiction, but it could be your future. Imagine living forever as digital consciousness, free from your body. You'd remember who you are, feel like yourself, but inside a machine. It's not just wild theory. Scientists believe it's possible. We're not there yet, but the first immortal mind might be born in your lifetime.
Great to be here.
Today we're tackling a topic that feels, well, straight out of sci-fi, but it's something researchers are seriously thinking about. Mind uploading.
Right, mind uploading. So the basic idea is you take your brain, make a perfect digital copy,
The whole thing.
the whole thing, and then you transfer your mind, your consciousness, your memories, personality into a computer.
So you could live on digitally, maybe forever, without your physical body.
That's the ultimate goal, yes.
Yeah.
Your self-awareness, everything intact, just somewhere else.
It definitely has that cool but maybe slightly creepy vibe, doesn't it?
It does. And think about what that digital life could be like.
You mean like doing normal stuff, eating, driving?
Sure, you'd simulate all that.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
you could do things impossible in the real world.
Fly, walk through walls.
Exactly. Travel to other planets instantly.
Yeah.
The limit is basically what science can realistically simulate.
Okay, wow. That's a huge concept.
It really is. It touches technology, philosophy, what it even means to be human, to be conscious.
Which is precisely why we wanted to do a deep dive on this. It hits so many important areas, cutting-edge science, technology, major ethical questions. And, for anyone tracking complex topics, maybe for exams like the UPSC, this kind of thing is highly relevant. It clearly relates to science and tech, ethics for the mains paper.
And just general awareness for prelims or for anyone curious about the future, really.
So our mission today is to unpack this, look at the incredible promise, but also get real about the massive hurdles.
And we're drawing heavily from an excellent article on this in the conversation. It lays out the landscape really well.
Perfect. So let's dive in. First big question, is this even possible theoretically?
Yeah.
And how far off are we?
Theoretically, maybe. The laws of physics, as we understand them, don't seem to explicitly forbid copying a mind if you can fully understand and replicate how it works.
And science has surprised us before, right? Things that seemed impossible.
Oh, absolutely. Landing on the moon, mapping the human genome, getting rid of smallpox, huge leaps were made.
So there's precedent for tackling massive challenges.
There is. But the article is very clear about the current situation. It says, pretty bluntly, as of today, we're nowhere close.
Okay. So what's the main roadblock? The article points to the brain itself, doesn't it?
That's the big one. The brain's complexity is just staggering.
How complex are we talking?
The article calls it potentially the most complex object in the known universe. Trying to replicate that is, well, it's an enormous task.
And it's not just about taking a snapshot, is it? The article stressed something crucial. The uploaded brain needs inputs, like the same inputs it gets now.
Exactly. That's critical. The simulation can't just be the brain floating in digital space. It needs a simulated world feeding it information.
So simulating sight, hearing, smell, touch.
All of that, yes, but also the internal stuff, feeling your body move, blinking, sensing your heart rate, body temperature, even the cues for your sleep cycle. Thousands of signals we barely notice.
Why is all that bodily feedback so important? Couldn't a mind just exist digitally?
This is a really key insight from the article. Think about sensory deprivation. It's considered a form of torture for a reason.
Wow, yeah.
Our sense of self, our mental well-being, it's deeply, deeply tied to this constant stream of information from our body and the world. The article mentions people who have trouble processing internal body signals often face mental health difficulties.
So our minds aren't just software running on hardware, they're completely intertwined with the physical.
Precisely. Which means the simulation of the body and its environment would need to be unbelievably accurate.
Like incredibly faithful to reality.
Yes, because the article warns that even small distortions or inaccuracies in those simulated inputs could cause serious psychological problems for the uploaded mind.
And right now, that kind of simulation, we just can't do it.
Technologically, no, we lack the sheer computing power. And frankly, the scientific understanding to create that detailed, a simulation of reality interacting with the brain.
Plus, you need to get the brain's data in the first place. The scanning technology.
Which is another massive hurdle. We need something way beyond current MRI. The article talks about an extraordinarily sophisticated MRI equivalent.
Something that can map the brain's entire 3D structure at, what, a microscopic level?
Exactly. Capturing all 86 billion neurons, tiny, tiny things, and their trillions of connections.
Where are we with that now?
Well, the article mentions scientists have mapped the whole fly brain, which is amazing, but tiny compared to ours, and small bits of a mouse brain.
So scaling up to a human brain, that's a huge leap.
Monumental. Just figuring out how to do that scan reliably could take decades, let alone actually performing it.
But let's say you could get that perfect 3D map, a static blueprint. Is that enough?
No, and that's another layer of complexity the article dives into. A map is static, but the brain is dynamic.
How so?
Every neuron is constantly adjusting how it works, its function, based on activity, its neighbors, the chemical environment.
So you need to model not just the structure, but the constantly changing activity.
Precisely. And we don't even know how deep that model needs to go. Down to the molecular level inside each neuron, maybe. We just don't know what's essential.
Okay, so scanning is hard, simulating the inputs is hard, modeling the dynamics is hard. This sounds almost impossible. Are there any potential shortcuts people are thinking about?
The article touches on a couple of theoretical ideas.
Like what?
Well, one idea is, instead of copying the biology exactly, what if we could figure out how the brain computes thought? The fundamental processes.
Understand the software rather than just copying the hardware.
Kind of. If you knew how collections of neurons create consciousness, maybe you could simulate just those essential computational steps.
Like knowing how an engine works lets you build one, versus just scanning an engine you don't understand.
That's a good analogy. But. And it's a huge but. The article makes it very clear our understanding of how thought actually arises from neurons is incredibly basic.
Right. It quotes the author saying something like, it's hard to express how very far we are from this.
Exactly that. So that shortcut relies on a level of neuroscience we just don't have yet.
Okay. What was the other potential shortcut?
Conceptually simpler, maybe? Replace biological neurons with artificial ones. Gradually.
One by one, until the whole brain is artificial.
That's the idea. Like the ship of Theseus, but for your brain.
But given the number of neurons and the complexity,
It's daunting. And the article points out right now, scientists can't functionally replace even one real neuron with an artificial one in a living system.
not even one. Wow. Okay, so both shortcuts seem pretty far off, too.
Very far off. We're talking unprecedented scanning, computing power, fundamental neuroscience breakthroughs, or revolutionary neuroprosthetics. The challenges are immense.
It really feels like a long shot based on all that.
It does. But the article doesn't completely write it off for the future. There are factors pushing things forward.
Mainly technology just getting faster and better. Exponential growth.
Yes. Computing power, AI. They're advancing at an incredible rate. Things that seem impossible now might become feasible much faster than we guessed based on today's tech. Decades from now could look very different.
And the article mentioned funding probably won't be an issue.
That seems likely. The lure of, well, potential immortality. It means there will probably always be billionaires willing to pour money into this research.
That kind of money can definitely accelerate things.
No doubt.
So, given all this huge challenges, but accelerating tech and funding, what kind of timeline does the article suggest people are predicting?
Well, you get a range. Some optimists, maybe tech visionaries, talk about 2045.
Yeah.
So just 20 years away.
That seems ambitious, given everything we've discussed.
It does. Others push it out further, maybe the end of this century, say 2145.
Okay, a century or so. And what does the article's author, the brain scientist, think?
They're more skeptical of those timelines. They say they'd be shocked if it happens within the next 100 years.
So not this century, perhaps?
But they do float the idea that maybe in 200 years it could be possible.
200 years. Still a long time, but
But potentially within the lifetime of someone born today or recently.
that's a mind-bending thought. The first person who could potentially live forever might be alive right now.
It's a fascinating implication. And, of course, as the article briefly notes, achieving that kind of technological immortality would throw open a whole universe of ethical questions we'd need to grapple with.
Absolutely. So, just to recap our deep dive here, we've looked at mind uploading, what it means, this idea of digital existence, and we've really dug into the massive scientific and tech hurdles, the brain's sheer complexity,
The need for incredibly accurate sensory simulation,
the challenge of scanning it all, modeling its dynamic activity.
and the fact that we just don't fundamentally understand how thought works yet.
Right. But despite all that, the feeling is maybe not soon, but perhaps within a couple of centuries with accelerating tech and funding.
Yeah.
It could happen.
That seems to be the cautious long-term possibility suggested.
It's definitely a concept that pushes boundaries. Science, philosophy, what it means to be human, a really potent example where science meets these huge future questions.
And you can see the relevance whether you're tracking these things for academic reasons, like for UPSC prep covering science, tech, and ethics.
Or just because it's fundamentally fascinating to think about where humanity might be heading.
Which leads to a really provocative final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah.
If mind uploading did become possible in your lifetime, maybe 150, 200 years from now, would you do it? Would you transfer your consciousness to a digital world for potential immortality?
What would you feel you were losing? Your body, your physical senses, real-world touch? And would the digital possibilities outweigh that loss for you?
It's a huge personal question, isn't it? Stemming directly from the science and challenges we've explored based on those insights from the conversation article.
Definitely something to mull over. We hope this deep dive gave you a good framework for thinking about it.
And if it sparked your interest, or if you have more questions about the hurdles or possibilities,
Please let us know. We'd love it if you liked this deep dive, if you found it interesting.
subscribe to the Deep Dive for more explorations like this, and definitely leave a comment below. What are your thoughts on mind uploading? Would you do it?
We genuinely enjoy hearing from you.